Jessica Drew is one of the most realistic lonely characters in comics. The source of her loneliness is based in science fiction, yet it still manages to be a more true-to-life reasoning for isolation than those of most similar characters. The typical lonely character is lonely due to interpersonal barriers they erect themselves. For example, Batman, since the 90s mostly, has periodically been depicted as socially isolated because he doesn't trust others, doesn't want to endanger others, can't be emotionally vulnerable, etc. Now those are typical cognitions of lonely characters that lead to their loneliness, and they're present on a narrative level because it's easy to write a character arc based on them. Learning to trust more and learning to open up are simple character growths that take the character out of loneliness. But loneliness and isolation in the real world is often not related to such cognitions. Isolation often happens for reasons outside of one's control, due to illness, disability, language barriers in your area, being new to a location and not having met people yet, or even the simple fact that those around you don't have an interest in spending time with you. These causes of loneliness are no fault of the sufferer, and as such, it may be hard for the sufferer to relate to the loneliness of characters like Batman. Batman can solve his loneliness by having a heartfelt conversation with Nightwing, but many lonely people don't have access to such a simple solution because their issue isn't founded within themselves. Jessica Drew presents a different kind of isolation. Her powers involve the involuntary, ongoing release of pheromones, which typically leads to anyone exposed to them becoming disgusted by her. Regardless of how kind, attractive, heroic, or valuable to the world she may be, she's left alone due to factors beyond her control. And notably, her value to the world being overlooked due to a guttural instinctual fear or disgust response actually makes her very similar to actual spiders, who are similarly written off by people despite their ecological importance. Symbolically, she's actually more akin to spiders than Spider-Man is. Spider-Woman's interpersonal difficulties are highly relatable. Her loneliness may stem from a fictional biological problem, but it bears the resonance of loneliness in the real world, which often comes from uncontrollable, unfair factors. And Jessica Drew's defending of the world despite this unfairness makes the character even more heroic. In order to continue being a superhero, protecting people who would be disgusted by her, she has to acknowledge that it's not the fault of anyone that she's so isolated from others. The reactions that others have to her pheromones are uncontrollable. The ability to be lonely and isolated from others without carrying resentment for them is a sign of deep emotional maturity and heroism. Anyone in a state of loneliness would do well to keep that lesson in mind.